Deshaun Watson, $5 million. The biggest fine in NFL history didn't come from an illegal hit, a dirty play, or even a coach cheating. It came from a quarterback whose misconduct off the field changed the way the league handled discipline. In 2022, Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson was fined $5 million by the NFL after facing more than 24 allegations of sexual misconduct. Along with the fine, he received an 11-game suspension, one of the harshest punishments ever handed down to a star player. The fine itself wasn't random. It came as part of a negotiated settlement between the NFL and the Players Association after a neutral disciplinary officer had initially suggested a lighter suspension. The league pushed back, saying Watson's actions warranted a more severe response. The $5 million fine set a new benchmark, making it clear the NFL wanted to send a message about personal conduct. Unlike most fines, which are about money lost from a paycheck, this was a direct financial penalty, a way to hit Watson's wallet as hard as his reputation. And even though Watson signed a fully guaranteed $230 million contract with Cleveland, the sheer size of the fine made history. Ndamukong Suh, $100,000. Most NFL fines come from routine violations, late hits, unsportsmanlike conduct, uniform mishaps. But in 2013, Ndamukong Suh of the Detroit Lions picked up one of the biggest on-field fines ever handed to a player. It happened in a Week 1 game against the Minnesota Vikings. After an interception, Suh went low on center John Sullivan, delivering a block far away from the ball. It wasn't just unnecessary, it was dangerous. Sullivan was blindsided, and the hit risked a serious knee injury. The NFL, already cracking down on player safety, came down hard. The league fined Suh $100,000, the largest fine for on-field conduct at the time. Unlike suspensions, which cost players money from missed games, this was a direct penalty, and it sent a clear message. Cheap shots against vulnerable players would not be tolerated. For Suh, it wasn't his first run-in with the league office. By 2013, he already had a reputation as one of the league's dirtiest players, having been fined or suspended multiple times for hits and stomps. This fine, though, stood out because of its sheer size and because it showed the NFL was willing to set an example. Suh appealed, but the fine held. It became a defining part of his career narrative, a reminder of how his aggressive style often crossed the line and how expensive those choices could be. Bill Belichick, $500,000. The largest fine ever handed to an NFL coach came in 2007, and it was aimed squarely at Bill Belichick, the mastermind of the New England Patriots dynasty. The scandal became known as Spygate. That season, the Patriots were caught videotaping the New York Jets defensive coaches as they signaled plays during a game. While stealing signs isn't against the rules in itself, using video equipment on the sidelines to do it was a direct violation of league policy. When the story broke, it shook the NFL. Critics argued the Patriots had gained an unfair edge for years, raising questions about how much of their success had been aided by off-field tactics. Commissioner Roger Goodell came down harder on Belichick than any coach before him. The league fined him $500,000, the maximum amount allowed under NFL rules. On top of that, the Patriots organization was fined $250,000 and stripped of their 2008 first-round draft pick, one of the harshest punishments ever handed to a team. Belichick accepted the fine, but offered little public remorse, insisting the illegal filming had not given New England any real competitive advantage. Still, the penalty stood, and the $500,000 remains the single largest fine ever for a coach. Spygate didn't derail the Patriots' dynasty. They went on to win 3 more Super Bowls after the scandal, but it cemented Belichick's reputation as both a genius and a rule bender, and it showed the NFL was willing to impose historic fines when the integrity of the game itself was at stake. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. Jamal Lewis, $760,000. Jamal Lewis was a powerhouse running back for the Baltimore Ravens, best remembered for his 2,000-yard rushing season in 2003. But just a year later, he made headlines for a very different reason, one that came with one of the largest fines ever handed to a player. In 2004, Lewis pleaded guilty to using a cell phone to help arrange a drug transaction with an undercover informant. Though the deal never went through, the legal consequences were severe. He was sentenced to 4 months in federal prison, plus 2 months in a halfway house, and the NFL added its own punishment. Along with a 2-game suspension, the league fined Lewis an eye-watering $760,000. The number was so high because it included salary forfeited during his suspension, essentially making it one of the most expensive disciplinary actions ever for an individual player. Unlike fines for dirty hits or uniform violations, this wasn't about football. It was about protecting the league's image. The NFL made it clear that off-field conduct could carry financial consequences, just as severe as anything done between the lines. Lewis served his sentence, returned to the field, and went on to finish his career with over 10,000 rushing yards. James Harrison, over $100,000. James Harrison built his reputation as one of the most feared linebackers in NFL history. A 5-time Pro Bowler and the 2008 Defensive Player of the Year, he played with an edge that terrified quarterbacks and ball carriers alike. But that edge also came at a price, literally. In the 2010 season alone, Harrison was fined more than $100,000 by the league for repeated violations of player safety rules. Most of those came from illegal or high hits on quarterbacks and receivers. One infamous game in October 2010 saw him lay out 2 Cleveland Browns players with helmet-to-helmet hits in the same afternoon. The NFL fined him $75,000 for that performance alone. Harrison made no secret of his disdain for the fines. He argued that the NFL was softening the game and targeting him unfairly. At one point, he even said he considered retiring rather than changing the way he played. "If I get fined for hitting too hard, then I'll keep getting fined," he said. "That's how I play." The league, however, was in the middle of a massive push to address concussions and protect offensive players, especially quarterbacks. Harrison's style, old school, physical, and violent, became a flashpoint in that debate. By the time his career was done, Harrison had accumulated well over $150,000 in fines. Vontaze Burfict, $112,000. Vontaze Burfict's entire NFL career was defined by controversy. An incredibly talented linebacker, he played with an intensity that often crossed the line into recklessness. And in 2018, that style cost him one of the largest single-game fines ever handed to a player. During a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, his longtime rivals, Burfict was flagged for multiple unnecessary roughness penalties. One was a helmet-to-helmet hit on wide receiver Antonio Brown. Another was a late shot on running back James Conner. The NFL reviewed the game afterward and handed Burfict a $112,000 fine, at the time, the largest ever, for on-field conduct in a single game. The punishment didn't come in a vacuum. Burfict already had a long track record of dangerous hits, suspensions, and fines. In fact, he was one of the league's most fined players in history, racking up over $4 million in lost salary from suspensions across his career. The 2018 fine was meant to be a statement from the NFL that his style of play was no longer acceptable. Just a year later, in 2019, Burfict delivered another helmet-to-helmet hit, this time on Colts tight end Jack Doyle, and the league suspended him for the rest of the season. It was the longest suspension ever for on-field violence, and it effectively ended his career. Albert Haynesworth, $190,000. In 2006, Albert Haynesworth went from Pro Bowl defensive tackle to the face of one of the ugliest incidents in NFL history. During a game between the Tennessee Titans and Dallas Cowboys, tempers boiled over. After a play near the goal line, Cowboys center Andre Garrod lost his helmet in the scrum. Haynesworth stood over him, then deliberately stomped down, his cleat striking Garrod's unprotected face. The stomp opened a gruesome gash that required 30 stitches. Garrod was lucky not to lose an eye. The NFL responded swiftly, handing Haynesworth a 5-game suspension without pay, the longest suspension in league history at the time for on-field violence. The suspension cost him $190,000 in salary, a staggering amount for missing just over a month of play. Haynesworth publicly apologized, saying his actions were inexcusable, but the damage to his reputation lingered for years. Even though he later signed a $100 million contract with Washington in 2009, he was never able to fully escape the shadow of that incident. Brandon Marshall, $10,500. Sometimes, the NFL's fines have nothing to do with dirty hits or suspensions. They come from strict uniform rules. In 2013, Chicago Bears wide receiver Brandon Marshall found that out the hard way. On October 10th, during a nationally televised game against the New York Giants, Marshall wore bright green cleats. It wasn't a fashion statement, it was a message. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the NFL, and players are encouraged to wear pink gear. Marshall chose green instead to raise awareness for mental health, an issue deeply personal to him. The problem? The NFL's uniform policy is notoriously strict. Anything outside the approved color scheme is considered a violation. After the game, Marshall revealed he had expected a fine, but wore the cleats anyway to make his point. The league followed through with a $10,500 penalty. To Marshall, it was worth it. He matched the fine with a donation to his mental health foundation and used the incident to bring more attention to his cause. He later said, "Sometimes you have to take a stand." Chad Johnson, $30,000. Chad Johnson, better known as Ocho Cinco at the time, was one of the NFL's most colorful personalities. He built his reputation as much on his elaborate touchdown celebrations as on his playmaking ability. But in 2009, one celebration ended up costing him a serious fine. After scoring against the Baltimore Ravens, Johnson ran to the sideline and grabbed a sombrero and poncho, props he had stashed ahead of time. He put them on in the end zone and played it up for the cameras, grinning as the crowd roared. It was classic Ocho Cinco, playful, over the top, and headline-grabbing. The NFL, however, didn't share the laughter. The league fined him $30,000 for violating its strict uniform and celebration rules. At the time, the NFL was cracking down on excessive celebrations, and Johnson's use of props crossed the line. For Johnson, the fine was just another chapter in his persona as the league's showman. He once joked that he kept money set aside specifically to pay for fines. Knowing his antics would draw league attention, fans loved it, but the NFL wanted tighter control over the image of the game. Marshawn Lynch, $75,000. Marshawn Lynch's relationship with the media was as famous as his running style. He was a dominant, punishing back nicknamed Beast Mode, but he hated interviews. Time after time, Lynch avoided talking to reporters, often giving one-word answers or skipping media availability altogether. By 2015, the NFL had grown tired of his standoffs with the press. After the NFC Championship game, Lynch once again refused to meet his media obligations. The league hit him with a $75,000 fine, one of the largest ever tied to skipping interviews. This wasn't his first clash with the NFL over media rules. Earlier that same season, he made headlines during Super Bowl week when he showed up to mandatory press sessions and answered every question with the same phrase, "I'm just here so I won't get fined." The line became iconic, a meme across sports and pop culture, and a perfect symbol of Lynch's stubborn standoff with the league. The $75,000 fine reinforced how serious the NFL is about its media obligations. For the league, players speaking to reporters is part of the business model, fueling coverage, storylines, and sponsorships. For Lynch, it was a distraction he wanted no part of. In the end, Lynch turned the tension into part of his persona. Antonio Brown, $54,000. Antonio Brown's career is remembered as much for its controversies as for its brilliance on the field. In 2018, while still with the Pittsburgh Steelers, his clashes with team rules and discipline came to a head, and his wallet paid the price. That year, Brown was fined by the team for repeated violations of team policy. Specifically, he was docked for missing practices and showing up late to team meetings, a pattern that had frustrated coaches and teammates. The fine came at a time when Brown's relationship with the Steelers was already unraveling, with tensions boiling over between him, quarterback Ben Roethlisberger, and head coach Mike Tomlin. The fines weren't isolated. Brown's career was littered with league and team penalties for everything from dangerous hits on defenders to uniform violations. But the $54,000 fine happened in 2019 when he was with the Raiders. He posted a letter showing the amount of the fine. It foreshadowed the chaotic exits and off-field drama that would follow him until retirement. Washington football team, $10 million. While most fines in NFL history have targeted players or coaches, the largest financial penalty ever imposed on a franchise came in 2021 when the league hit the Washington football team, now Commanders, with a staggering $10 million fine. This wasn't about on-field behavior. It stemmed from a lengthy league investigation into Washington's workplace culture under longtime owner Dan Snyder. The inquiry found a pattern of systemic misconduct and harassment stretching over years. Female employees described a toxic environment filled with intimidation, verbal abuse, and repeated allegations of sexual harassment by executives and team officials. The NFL's investigation concluded that Washington's workplace was highly unprofessional, with failures in both leadership and accountability. Snyder himself stepped back from day-to-day team operations, handing responsibilities to his wife, Tanya Snyder. But for many critics, the $10 million fine felt light compared to the severity of the allegations, especially since much of the investigation's findings were not released publicly, sparking further controversy about transparency. The fine was meant to punish the organization as a whole, not just one person. It was also symbolic. The NFL wanted to signal that off-field culture and the treatment of employees matter just as much as player discipline. But for many, the punishment highlighted the league's uneven record in handling workplace scandals. Marlon Humphrey, $45,020. Baltimore Ravens cornerback. Marlon Humphrey has built a reputation as one of the NFL's most physical defensive backs. He plays aggressively at the line, presses receivers hard, and never shies away from contact. But in the 2024 playoffs, that physicality cost him a massive fine. During a postseason matchup against the Buffalo Bills, Humphrey delivered a helmet-to-helmet hit on a receiver, the kind of dangerous contact the NFL has tried to eliminate in recent years. The league reviewed the play and fined him $45,020, nearly double what he'd been fined for a similar infraction earlier in his career. It wasn't an isolated incident either. Humphrey has had a history of drawing penalties and fines for hits deemed outside the rules. For the NFL, this was about sending a message. Repeated violations of player safety rules would come with increasingly steep financial consequences. For Humphrey, the fine was another reminder of the thin line between being a tough, physical defender and one who crosses into unsafe territory. Cornerbacks thrive on intimidation, but the league has made it clear that shots to the head won't be tolerated, even in the high stakes of the playoffs. Patriots, Tom Brady, $1 million. One of the NFL's most infamous scandals wasn't just about deflated footballs. It also carried one of the largest team fines in league history. In 2015, after a months-long investigation into Deflategate, the NFL fined the New England Patriots $1 million and stripped them of 2 draft picks, including a first-rounder. The controversy started after the AFC Championship game against the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts accused the Patriots of using underinflated footballs, which would have made them easier to grip and throw in the cold, rainy conditions. The league launched an investigation, and the Wells report concluded it was more probable than not that Patriots staff had intentionally deflated footballs, and that Tom Brady was likely aware of it. The punishment was massive. The Patriots were fined $1 million and lost a first-round draft pick, 2016, and a fourth-round pick, 2017. Tom Brady was suspended 4 games to start the 2016 season. Patriots owner Robert Kraft blasted the fine as unprecedented and insisted the team did nothing wrong. Brady fought his suspension in court before eventually serving it. The entire saga became a media circus, dominating NFL headlines for over a year. In hindsight, the $1 million fine was as much about the Patriots' reputation as the footballs themselves. By then, the franchise was already viewed as rule benders thanks to Spygate, and the NFL seemed determined to make an example of them. Jameson Williams, $25,325. Detroit Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams has already shown flashes of being one of the league's most dangerous deep threats. But in 2024, he found himself making headlines for something other than his speed. After scoring a 61-yard touchdown, Williams punctuated the moment with an obscene gesture toward the crowd. The NFL quickly responded, fining him $25,325. It wasn't his first run-in with league discipline that year. By that point in the season, Williams had already racked up more than $70,000 in fines for various infractions, mostly unsportsmanlike conduct and taunting penalties. His growing track record made this particular fine even steeper than usual. The NFL often escalates penalties for repeat offenders. For the Lions, the fine was a frustrating reminder of the balance young stars have to strike between emotion and professionalism. Williams' talent on the field was undeniable, but the league made it clear that his behavior after the whistle was costing him, literally. While $25,325 is a fraction of his salary, fines like these add up quickly. Frankie Luvu, $33,766. Washington Commanders linebacker Frankie Luvu has built his reputation as a relentless, high-motor defender who never takes a snap off. That intensity helped make him a breakout player in 2023, but in the 2024 playoffs, it came at a steep price. In a postseason game, Luvu was penalized twice for illegal hits to the quarterback's head and neck area. The NFL reviewed the film afterward and hit him with two separate fines that totaled $33,766. For a player like Luvu, who thrives on physicality and aggression, it was a costly reminder of how thin the line has become between hard-nosed defense and dangerous play. What made the fine stand out wasn't just the amount. It was the fact that both came in the same game. For the NFL, it was an easy decision to double up. The league has been crystal clear that contact to the head, especially against quarterbacks, is non-negotiable. Even one hit can bring a big fine. Two in a playoff spotlight, that was always going to result in a hefty penalty. Patrick Mahomes, $14,000. Even the NFL's biggest stars aren't immune from league discipline. In 2024, Patrick Mahomes, two-time MVP, two-time Super Bowl champion, and the face of the NFL, was fined $14,000 for a gesture he made during a regular season game against the Buffalo Bills. After scoring a touchdown, Mahomes celebrated by making a gun-like hand gesture, pointing it toward the crowd. The NFL immediately flagged it as a violation of its conduct policy, which specifically prohibits gestures considered threatening, obscene, or suggestive of violence. For the league, the fine wasn't about targeting Mahomes personally. It was about consistency. The NFL has tried to tighten its image in recent years, particularly around celebrations and on-field behavior that could be seen as unsportsmanlike or inflammatory. Even though Mahomes is one of the league's most marketable players, the $14,000 penalty sent a clear message. No player, no matter how famous, gets a pass. Mahomes accepted the fine without much public pushback, but the incident sparked debate among fans. Some thought the punishment was excessive for what they saw as a harmless celebration. Others argued that the league has to draw the line somewhere, especially when its most visible players set the tone for everyone else. New Orleans Saints Bountygate, $500,000. One of the NFL's most infamous scandals wasn't about deflated footballs or sideline cameras. It was about violence being incentivized. In 2012, the league revealed that the New Orleans Saints had operated a bounty system under defensive coordinator Gregg Williams, where players were paid bonuses for injuring opponents or knocking them out of games. The system reportedly ran from 2009 through 2011, including the team's Super Bowl winning season. Investigators uncovered that defensive players were offered payouts for hits that caused injuries severe enough to sideline opposing stars. When the details became public, the backlash was immediate. Commissioner Roger Goodell handed down one of the harshest sets of punishments in NFL history. The Saints organization was fined $500,000, the maximum penalty allowed against a team at the time. In addition, they lost 2 second-round draft picks and saw several individuals suspended. Head coach Sean Payton was banned for the entire 2012 season. Defensive coordinator Gregg Williams received an indefinite suspension, later reinstated. General manager Mickey Loomis was suspended for 8 games. Assistant coach Joe Vitt was suspended 6 games. The The fallout crippled New Orleans' 2012 season and tarnished the franchise's reputation for years. The $500,000 fine was symbolic. It wasn't just about money. It was the league's way of making an example out of the Saints, showing that the NFL would not tolerate programs that rewarded injuries in a sport already under fire for safety concerns. Denico Autry, $2 million. In 2024, veteran defensive lineman Denico Autry found himself at the center of one of the most expensive fines ever handed to an individual player. Unlike most penalties, which come from late hits, personal fouls, or even uniform violations, Autry's fine stemmed from violating the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. The NFL suspended Autry for 6 games and tied that suspension to a financial hit of roughly $2 million. Because fines for PED violations are calculated by the amount of salary lost during the suspension, Autry's high cap hit meant that missing 6 games came with a massive financial penalty. It became one of the largest suspension-related fines in league history. For the NFL, this was about more than just punishing one player. PED enforcement has long been tied to the league's credibility and its attempts to maintain competitive balance. By coming down hard on a veteran like Autry, the league signaled that even experienced players on playoff-caliber teams would not get any leniency. Autry's fine shows how the structure of NFL contracts can magnify punishments. A younger player on a rookie deal might lose a fraction of that amount. But for a veteran starter, a 6-game suspension can strip away millions in earnings instantly. Derwin James, approximately $708,333. Los Angeles Chargers safety. Derwin James has built his career on playing fearless football. He's a hard hitter, a tone setter, and one of the league's most physical defenders. But in 2024, that style finally caught up to him in the form of one of the heaviest fines ever tied to player safety violations. During the season, James was flagged for repeated illegal hits, mostly helmet-to-helmet contact against receivers and quarterbacks. The NFL reviewed the plays and decided his history of prior violations warranted more than just a standard fine. James was suspended for 1 game, and the suspension carried an automatic financial penalty, the loss of a full game check. Because of James's high salary, that single missed paycheck cost him roughly $708,333. Unlike flat fines handed out for most personal fouls, suspensions are directly tied to a player's salary, which means star veterans can lose staggering sums of money even for a 1-game ban. For the league, this was about enforcing its player safety agenda. By 2024, the NFL had made clear that repeat offenders would not only be fined, but also suspended, and the money lost would serve as the ultimate deterrent. For James, it was a harsh reminder that even the most talented defensive players must adapt or pay the price. Literally. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.